I was home on leave when my neighbor asked if I was allowed to tell him what I actually do. I'd been back from deployment for exactly 3 days when Owen knocked on my door holding a six-pack of expensive imported beer. He lived next door in the blue house with the obsessively perfect lawn, claimed he worked from home doing something vague with computers. We'd never really talked beyond polite waves across the fence in the 2 years I'd lived here. "Hey, Marcus," he said with this uncomfortable smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thought we could finally have that neighbor chat we keep saying we'll do." He handed me a beer and basically invited himself onto my porch without waiting for permission. After 15 minutes of forced small talk about weather, local sports, and neighborhood gossip, Owen leaned back in his chair and asked the question that made everything click. "So what exactly do you do for the military? I know you probably can't tell me everything, but I'm genuinely curious about what you're allowed to share with civilians." Something about how he phrased it felt completely wrong, not the casual curiosity you'd expect from a friendly neighbor, but more like he was fishing for specific classified information. I gave him the standard cover answer I give everyone. IT support, nothing exciting, mostly computer maintenance and network troubleshooting at different bases. Owen nodded thoughtfully but kept pushing with follow-ups. "That must involve travel to some really interesting places though, right? You've been gone for months at a time. I noticed your house was completely empty from March all the way through August." He was exactly right about the timeline, but why was he keeping track of when I was gone? I told him it was just routine deployments, nothing special. But Owen seemed genuinely disappointed by my boring answers, like he'd been expecting something much more detailed. The conversation dragged on for another hour, with him asking increasingly technical questions about base security protocols, communication systems, and personnel rotation schedules. Questions that felt way too sophisticated for someone making casual neighborly conversation. When I turned the tables and asked what kind of computer work he actually did, Owen immediately got vague and evasive. Just freelance stuff, data analysis projects, boring technical consulting for various corporate clients, nothing as exciting as military work. But I'd been noticing things about Owen over the past year that didn't add up to a simple freelance computer consultant. Like the expensive surveillance equipment I'd glimpsed through his garage window when the door was open. The multiple satellite dishes mounted on his roof that seemed excessive for basic internet service. The fact that he received packages from overseas shipping companies almost every single day. Most suspicious was his actual schedule. Owen claimed to work normal business hours, but his house lights were on at all hours of the night. I'd seen him coming and going at 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. multiple times, always carrying a laptop bag and looking completely alert, not like someone going for a late-night drive. During our conversation, Owen kept trying to steer topics back to my work and seemed increasingly frustrated when I wouldn't elaborate beyond basic details. He mentioned that his computer projects sometimes involved government contracts and that he completely understood the need for operational discretion, as if that would make me more willing to open up. When I finally said I needed to head inside to unpack deployment gear, Owen lingered on the porch awkwardly. He asked if we could continue our conversation tomorrow evening, maybe over dinner, since he rarely got the chance to talk to someone with my background and overseas experience. The way he emphasized background made my skin crawl. I went inside and immediately called my security contact to report the entire interaction as a potential probe. While I was on the phone explaining Owen's questions and behavior, I happened to glance out my kitchen window toward his backyard, and that's when I saw exactly what he'd really been doing while I was deployed overseas. My mouth goes dry as I stare out the kitchen window. In Owen's backyard, partially concealed behind his meticulously trimmed hedges, is a small cluster of trees with equipment mounted on them, equipment pointed directly at my house. From this angle, I can make out at least 3 different devices: a small camera, what looks like a directional microphone, and something else I can't immediately identify but recognize as surveillance gear. "Sir, are you still there?" My security contact's voice pulls me back to the phone call. "Yeah, I'm here," I say, moving away from the window. "You need to send a team now. He's got surveillance equipment in the trees facing my property. Multiple devices, including directional mics aimed at my windows. Stay inside and away from windows. Do not engage with him again. Team is en route. ETA, 15 minutes. He responds, his tone shifting from concerned to urgent. "Is there anything else you observed?" I describe Owen's behavior during our conversation, his pointed questions about my deployment schedule, and the suspicious late-night activities I've witnessed over the past months. "Lock your doors. Secure any classified materials. We'll handle this," he says before ending the call. I immediately move to my bedroom and open the gun safe hidden in my closet. As I'm retrieving my service weapon, I hear heavy footsteps on my front porch, followed by aggressive knocking. "Marcus. Hey, Marcus." Owen's voice carries through the door. "I forgot to mention something important. Can you open up for a second?" I check the peephole. Owen stands on my porch looking agitated, repeatedly checking his phone. His expression is nothing like the friendly neighbor act from earlier. His eyes dart around, scanning the street, and there's tension in his shoulders I recognize from men expecting trouble. "Marcus, I know you're in there. It's important," he calls out, knocking harder. I position myself against the wall beside the door, weapon ready but not visible from the front windows. The knocking stops abruptly. Through the peephole, I see Owen step back from the door, phone to his ear, speaking rapidly in what sounds like a foreign language, not Russian, something else I can't place. He pockets his phone and stares directly at my door for several uncomfortable seconds before turning to walk briskly across my lawn toward his house. Halfway there, he freezes as 2 unmarked sedans turn onto our street, followed by a nondescript van. The vehicles slow down, clearly assessing the situation. Owen changes direction immediately, cutting between our houses toward the backyard. I move to my rear window just in time to see him vaulting over my back fence into the adjacent property. Two men in plainclothes exit the van and pursue him, while the sedans position themselves to block escape routes. My phone buzzes with a text, "Stay inside. Containment in progress." 20 minutes later, there's a coded knock at my door, 3 short, 2 long, the prearranged signal. I holster my weapon and open the door to find Agent Kelsey, my primary security contact, along with 2 other agents I don't recognize. "We need to debrief you and secure this location," Kelsey says as they enter, already scanning my living room with handheld detection equipment. "Your neighbor Owen, or rather Oleg Petrov, has been on our watch list for some time." Oleg Petrov. The name confirms what I'd suspected, but still hits like a punch to the gut. Russian intelligence? Yes, and he's been very interested in you and 3 other military personnel in this neighborhood. Kelsey gestures for one of the other agents to continue sweeping the house while he sits down across from me. "What exactly did you see in his backyard?" I describe the surveillance equipment in detail, and Kelsey nods grimly. "That's just what we can see from here. The team searching his house has found significantly more. Multiple computer systems with real-time monitoring of your property. Directional microphones aimed at every window of your house. And photographs, lots of photographs." "Of me?" I ask, though I already know the answer. "Yes, including some from your previous deployments overseas, places where, officially, you were never present." My blood runs cold. If Owen Oleg has photos from those deployments, then my cover as simple IT support has been compromised for longer than I realized. And if he knows what I was really doing, how long has he been watching me? Based on preliminary evidence, at least 18 months, possibly since before you moved in. Kelsey looks up as the agent returns from sweeping my house. "Anything?" 3 devices so far. Living room lamp, kitchen smoke detector, and 1 in the bedroom ceiling fan. I feel violated, knowing he's been listening to everything in my home for who knows how long. The conversations I've had, the calls I've made, all potentially compromised. "What happens now?" I ask. "We've lost Petrov for the moment. He had an escape route planned, but we're tracking him," Kelsey explains. "As for you, we need to move you to secure housing immediately. This residence is compromised. My belongings will be thoroughly screened. Many will need to be left behind. Assume everything has been contaminated with tracking compounds." A commotion outside draws our attention. Through the window, I see agents emerging from Owen's house carrying boxes of equipment and hard drives. One agent holds up what looks like a wall chart covered in photographs. I recognize myself in several of them. "Pack only essentials," Kelsey says, standing. "You have 30 minutes. We're moving you to a secure location where we'll conduct a full debriefing." As I gather my things, I glance once more toward the blue house with its perfect lawn. The place looks exactly the same as it did this morning, yet everything has changed. For 2 years, I've been living next door to someone who's been meticulously documenting my movements, recording my conversations, and quite possibly reporting back to foreign intelligence about the work I've been doing. And the worst part is, I never saw it coming until today when Owen knocked on my door with expensive imported beer and an uncomfortable smile that didn't reach his eyes. I'm sitting on my couch, surrounded by strangers in my own living room. 3 agents in plain clothes are meticulously examining my belongings while Agent Kelsey sits across from me, his laptop open on the coffee table between us. "Let's go through this one more time," he says, sliding a photo across to me. It's Owen, no, Oleg, standing in what looks like an airport terminal in Brussels. I've never been to Brussels, at least not officially. "That was taken during your deployment in May," Kelsey explains. "He was tracking you." The photo shows Owen in a baseball cap and sunglasses, but it's unmistakably him. In the background, blurred but recognizable, is me in civilian clothes, entering a taxi. "How did he know where I'd be?" I ask, my mouth dry. "That's what we're trying to determine." Kelsey pulls up another image on his laptop. This is from his computer. It's a map of your movements over the past 8 months. The screen shows a detailed tracking map with timestamps, coordinates, and even elevation changes. There are notes in Cyrillic alongside each major point. My stomach churns looking at it. We've identified him as Oleg Petrov, Russian intelligence. He's been operating in the U.S. for at least 6 years under various identities. Kelsey scrolls through a file. Before he was your friendly neighbor Owen with the perfect lawn, he was Oliver Pearson in Arlington, Oscar Williams in San Diego, and Omar Patel in Norfolk, all neighborhoods with high concentrations of military personnel. One of the other agents approaches, holding a small plastic bag containing what looks like a tiny black disc. "Found this behind the bathroom mirror," she says. "Sophisticated stuff, Russian-made, but with components sourced through Chinese manufacturers to obscure the origin." "How many is that now?" Kelsey asks. 7 total, living room, kitchen, both bedrooms, bathroom, and 2 in the office. I feel violated in a way I never experienced, even in combat zones. My home, my private space, has been invaded more thoroughly than I could have imagined. "What about my neighbors?" I ask. "You mentioned others were being watched?" Kelsey nods grimly. 3 others on this street. Captain Rodriguez, 2 doors down, Lieutenant Commander Wilkins across the street, and Dr. Patel at the end of the block, who consults for the Defense Department. "Jesus," I mutter. "We all just thought he was the weird guy with the lawn obsession." That's the point. The perfect cover is boring mediocrity with just enough eccentricity to explain away unusual behavior. Kelsey closes his laptop. "We need to move you immediately. Pack only what you absolutely need. Clothes, toiletries, essential documents. Everything else stays for further examination." "What about my computer? My phone?" Compromised. Both show evidence of intrusion. When you were deployed, he accessed your home at least 6 times that we can confirm through his surveillance logs. My blood runs cold. He was in my house? Yes, and he installed hardware keyloggers on your devices. We've found 3 dead drops around the city where he was leaving physical media with data extracted from your home. I stand up, needing to move, to process this somehow. The walls of my home suddenly feel foreign, hostile even. Pack a bag, Kelsey says more gently. You'll be relocated to secure military housing until we complete the investigation. 20 minutes later, I'm watching agents methodically go through my belongings with handheld scanners. One of them runs a wand over my favorite jacket and it emits a high-pitched beep. Tracking compound, he explains, bagging the jacket. Microscopic particles that can be detected from satellite or drone surveillance. They're on most of your clothes. Another agent is examining my watch. This has been tampered with, she says. There's a passive transmitter inside. Very sophisticated work. I feel like I'm in some paranoid spy thriller, except it's my actual life. My watch, my clothes, my home. Time to go, Kelsey says, guiding me toward the door where a black SUV waits. As we step outside, I glance at Owen's blue house with its perfect lawn. A team of agents is carrying boxes of equipment out the front door. One holds what looks like a stack of hard drives. What will happen to him? I ask. If we catch him? Interrogation, then likely a prisoner exchange eventually. He's valuable. In the SUV, Kelsey hands me a tablet. These were found in his house. I think you should see them. The screen shows dozens of photos of me in various locations around the world, places where I was supposedly never present. There's me in civilian clothes in Estonia, another in a cafe in Jordan. One showing me entering a secure facility in Germany. He's been following you for much longer than we initially thought, Kelsey explains. Some of these date back 3 years. Before I even moved to this neighborhood. Exactly. You weren't randomly targeted. He moved in next to you, specifically. We drive in silence for several minutes as I swipe through the evidence of my compromised life. Then Kelsey speaks again, his voice carefully neutral. Marcus, given what we've found, we need to discuss your actual role. Your cover as IT support is clearly blown. I look up from the tablet. What are you suggesting? I think it's time we had an honest conversation about what you really do for the military, and why Oleg Petrov dedicated years to watching you. The SUV turns onto the highway as I consider his words. My carefully constructed cover story, maintained for years, has been shattered in a single afternoon by a neighbor with a perfect lawn who brought me expensive imported beer. There's something else you should know, Kelsey adds, his expression grave. The team found evidence that Petrov wasn't working alone. There are communications with at least 3 other operatives still active in the area. I stare out the window at the passing landscape, realizing that my life as I knew it ended the moment Owen knocked on my door 3 days after I returned home. Tell me everything, I say finally. We will, Kelsey promises, but not here, not until we're secure. The SUV accelerates, carrying me away from the neighborhood I called home for 2 years, and toward whatever uncertain future awaits in the aftermath of this revelation. The secure military housing feels sterile compared to my home white walls, standard issue furniture, and the constant hum of surveillance equipment that I'm acutely aware of now. It's been 4 days since my life imploded, and I'm still processing the fact that my neighbor was a Russian intelligence operative who had been tracking me for years. We've got him, Kelsey announces, walking into the small living room where I've been reviewing files. Airport security picked up Oleg trying to board a flight to Toronto with a fake Canadian passport. He's in custody now. My heart rate spikes. Where? Secure detention facility outside the city. He's being processed. Kelsey sets his laptop on the table and pulls up a grainy security camera image. It shows Owen Oleg at an airport checkpoint, his face tense, but still maintaining that casual demeanor that fooled me for 2 years. I want to see him, I say, surprising myself with how quickly the words come out. Kelsey studies me for a moment. Actually, that's why I'm here. We'd like you to participate in a counterintelligence operation. What kind of operation? A controlled meeting. We need to understand what he knows, who he's working with, and what information has been compromised. Kelsey leans forward. You have a unique position here. He's spent years studying you, building a profile. That creates a psychological leverage point we can exploit. I consider this. You want me to interrogate him? Not exactly. We want you to engage with him while our team observes. He'll likely try to manipulate you. That's valuable intelligence in itself. Kelsey pulls out another folder. We've prepared a briefing package with guidelines on how to approach the conversation. 24 hours later, I'm sitting in a sterile interview room. The walls are pale gray, the table bolted to the floor. 2-way mirror on one wall, though Owen will certainly know it's there. I'm wearing a wireless earpiece so Kelsey can coach me through the conversation. When they bring Owen in, he looks smaller somehow. The confident neighbor with the perfect lawn is gone, replaced by a man in a standard-issue jumpsuit with dark circles under his eyes. But when he sees me, his face transforms relief washing over his features. Marcus, he says, his accent now noticeably Eastern European. Thank God, you have to help me. Not what I expected. Sit down, Owen, or should I call you Oleg now? I keep my voice neutral. He sits across from me, leaning forward urgently. That name is part of my cover, yes, but not for the reasons they're telling you. He glances at the 2-way mirror. I need you to listen very carefully. You're being manipulated. In my ear, Kelsey whispers, let him talk. See where he goes with this. I'm listening, I say. Owen Oleg runs a hand through his disheveled hair. I'm not Russian intelligence. I'm CIA. Deep cover. monitoring Russian operations targeting military personnel. He lowers his voice. Your security contact, Kelsey? He's compromised. Has been for years. I maintain my poker face, but my pulse quickens. That's quite a claim. I know how it sounds. He reaches slowly into his jumpsuit pocket, telegraphing the movement so I don't get alarmed. He pulls out what appears to be a CIA identification card and slides it across the table. It looks legitimate, the right security features. Proper formatting. I've been tracking a Russian cell operating in your neighborhood. You and the others were targets. I examine the ID while Kelsey's voice crackles in my ear. Well-crafted forgery. Keep him talking. If you're CIA, why the surveillance equipment pointed at my house? I ask. Counter-surveillance. I was monitoring their monitoring. He leans closer. Think about it, Marcus. If I were Russian intelligence, why would I approach you directly? Why draw attention to myself? It's a good question. And for a second, doubt creeps in. But then I remember the photographs of me overseas, the tracking compounds on my clothes, the breached computer. You had photos of me from deployments, places I was never officially deployed. His eyes light up. Exactly. How would Russian intelligence get those? They couldn't, but the CIA could. He taps the table for emphasis. I was assigned to your security detail for those operations. That's how I knew where you'd been. In my ear, Kelsey sounds tense. He's good, very good. Feed him the false information we discussed. I adjust my position, leaning back slightly. So you're saying the team that came to my house, the people who found all your surveillance equipment, they're the real threat? Not all of them, Owen says carefully. But Kelsey? Definitely. Check his background. Ask about Operation Blackstone in 2018. He was investigated internally but cleared under suspicious circumstances. I've never heard of Operation Blackstone, and from Kelsey's silence in my ear, I suspect it doesn't exist. But Owen delivers the lie with such conviction that I find myself wanting to believe him. If what you're saying is true, why didn't you just approach me professionally? Agency to agency? Because I didn't know who to trust. Owen's eyes dart to the mirror again. Your cover was deep. I needed to be certain before making contact. And then when I did, he gestures around us. This happened. He pulls a small notebook from his other pocket and slides it across. Look at page 43. Those are the names of 3 Russian agents currently operating in the D.C. area. Information only someone with CIA clearance would have. I flip to the page, seeing a list of names and addresses. In my ear, Kelsey whispers, those names are from a declassified report from last year. Public information disguised as classified. Classic technique. I notice inconsistencies now. Small details that don't align. The way he says certain words. The convenient explanations for damning evidence. You know what I actually do for the military, Owen? Of course, he says without hesitation. Your communications infrastructure security. You protect the networks that carry classified information across global military installations. It's close, but not quite right. Another test failed. I need to verify some of what you're telling me, I say, changing tactics. If I were to check on the secure server at Langley, would I find your operational files? Yes, under project designation, Marble Arch. He doesn't hesitate. Access code 7 Delta 9 Tango Romeo. Kelsey's voice is calm in my ear. No such project exists. We've got what we need. I stand up. I'll look into this. If what you're saying is true... Marcus, he interrupts, desperation creeping into his voice. Don't leave me here. They'll make me disappear. No one's disappearing anyone, I say. If you're who you say you are, this will all get sorted out. As I turn to leave, he calls after me. The blue folder in your bedroom closet, the one behind your deployment gear. Check it. The evidence is there. I freeze. I do have a blue folder in my closet, tucked behind my gear, but how would he know that, unless he'd been in my bedroom? We'll talk again soon, I say, and walk out. In the observation room, Kelsey is waiting with 2 other agents. Well done, he says. He revealed quite a bit there. How did he know about the blue folder in my closet? Because he's been inside your house multiple times, Kelsey reminds me. Remember? We found evidence he accessed your home at least 6 times while you were deployed. I nod, feeling foolish for even momentarily doubting. What now? Now we feed him the false information we discussed. See what he does with it. Kelsey hands me another file. Tomorrow, you go back in and tell him you've discovered some discrepancies in Kelsey's background. Make him think you're starting to believe him. And then we watch where he tries to take it. The more he reveals about his tradecraft and contacts, the more valuable this becomes. I look through the one-way glass at Owen, who sits slumped at the table, head in his hands, the perfect picture of a man wrongfully accused. It's an impressive performance. He's very good at this, I observe. The best usually are, Kelsey replies. That's why they're so dangerous. The interrogation room feels different today. The air is heavier, charged with anticipation as I sit across from Oleg, and watch him carefully arrange his thoughts. I've returned as planned, armed with the false information Kelsey prepared for me. I looked into what you said. I begin, keeping my voice low and uncertain. About Kelsey, there are some inconsistencies in his background that I can't explain. Oleg's eyes light up, that calculated spark of hope I've been trained to recognize. What did you find? He asks, leaning forward. Operation Blackstone. There was an internal investigation. The records were buried, but they exist. His shoulders relax slightly. He thinks I'm taking the bait. I told you, this goes deeper than you realize, Marcus. So explain it to me. I challenge him. If you're really CIA, tell me exactly what I do for the military, not the cover story, what I actually do. Oleg smiles, confident now. You're part of the Quantum Shield Initiative. You don't just support IT infrastructure, you're responsible for hardening the military's classified communications networks against foreign penetration. Your last deployment was to upgrade the fiber optic security protocols at 3 forward operating bases. It's impressively detailed and dangerously close to accurate. In my ear, Kelsey whispers, he's revealing classified information. Keep him going. And how would you know that? I ask. Because I was tasked with monitoring the Russians who were monitoring you. He leans closer. The blue house with the perfect lawn? That was strategic positioning. The surveillance equipment wasn't aimed at you, it was aimed at the Russian operatives watching both of us. I let doubt flicker across my face. The performance we planned. If that's true, then who was actually watching me? The family 2 doors down. The Millers. He says it with absolute conviction. The husband isn't really an accountant. I sit back, pretending to process this revelation. The Millers are actually a military family. The husband is Air Force. Completely legitimate. But Oleg's confidence is unwavering. I need more than just your word, I say. Give me something concrete that proves you're CIA. The servers you updated in Estonia last April. There was a breach 3 days after you left, a sophisticated one that got past your security protocols. It wasn't detected for 17 days. The hair on the back of my neck stands up. That breach was classified at the highest levels. Only someone with deep access to intelligence would know about it. How do you know about Estonia? I ask, my voice sharper than intended. Oleg smiles thinly. Because I was part of the team that identified the breach. Check my service record, Pavel Orlovsky, Technical Operations, stationed at Langley from 2017 to 2020. In my ear, Kelsey's voice is tense. We need to end this, now. But I can't stop. If you're CIA, then why the surveillance equipment aimed at my house? Why the directional microphones pointed at my windows? Counter-surveillance, he repeats. I was recording what they were recording to identify their targets and methods. And the photos of me overseas, the ones found in your house? Protective surveillance. I was tracking who was tracking you. He leans forward. Marcus, think about it. If I wanted to harm you or extract information, why would I approach you directly with beer? Why not just continue gathering intelligence covertly? It's the same question I've been asking myself. In my ear, Kelsey is insistent. We're terminating this session. Wrap it up. I stand up. I need to verify some things. Wait, Oleg says, urgency in his voice. The tracking compounds on your clothes, did they tell you about those? Yes. Ask them who applied those compounds. It wasn't me. His eyes bore into mine. Check the chemical signature. It's Russian-made, FSB standard issue. Why would I use Russian tracking compounds if I was trying to hide my identity? In my ear, Kelsey's voice is cold. End this now. I turn to leave. But Oleg calls after me. The satellite dishes on my roof ask them why a Russian operative would need 5 different satellite uplinks. No foreign intelligence service operates that way. Only we do. The door closes behind me, and I find Kelsey waiting in the hallway, his expression grim. He's good, I say, my mind racing. That bit about Estonia was accurate, Kelsey finishes, which is concerning. We need to identify his intelligence sources immediately. Back in the secure conference room, a team of analysts is already reviewing the interrogation footage. Director Harmon, who I've only met once before, stands at the head of the table. He's trying to play you, Harmon says bluntly. It's a classic technique. Create doubt about your handlers, offer seemingly classified information to build credibility. But how did he know about Estonia? I press. That's what we need to find out. Harmon slides a folder across to me. We've prepared the next phase. You're going to confront him with evidence we've been holding back. The folder contains photographs Oleg meeting with known Russian intelligence operatives in Prague, Berlin, and Tallinn. Dates, times, transaction records. And most damning of all, transcripts of communications between Oleg and his handlers, discussing me specifically. This is from 3 years ago, I say, reading the transcript, before I even moved to that neighborhood. Exactly, Harmon confirms. He didn't randomly choose to live next to you. He was assigned to you specifically. 20 minutes later, I'm back in the interrogation room. This time, I don't sit down. I simply slide the folder across to Oleg and wait. He flips through the contents, his face betraying nothing at first. Then I see it the slightest tightening around his eyes, the micro-expression of someone whose carefully constructed narrative is collapsing. These are fabricated, he says, but there's no conviction in his voice. No, they're not, and you know it. I tap the transcript. You reported that I would be an ideal target for network penetration because of my access levels. You moved in next door specifically to monitor me. Oleg stares at the documents for a long moment, then looks up at me with different eyes. The pretense falls away, revealing something colder and more calculating. You Americans, he says, his accent now distinctly Russian. So predictable in your methods. Why me? I ask. Out of all the military personnel you could have targeted? Because you were important, he says simply. Your IT support cover was transparent to anyone paying attention. The patterns of your deployments, the security protocols around your movements, they told us everything we needed to know. Which was what? That you protect the networks that carry your nation's most sensitive military communications, he shrugs. The modern battlefield is digital. Control the networks, control the war. I feel cold despite the room's warmth. How many others were you watching? In your neighborhood? 4. In the country? Many more. He leans back, something like pride crossing his features. We've been more successful than you realize. 2 days later, I'm sitting in Director Harmon's office at the Pentagon. The walls are lined with commendations and photographs of Harmon with various presidents and foreign dignitaries. The operation was a success, he tells me. Based on information extracted from Petrov, we've arrested 5 other operatives in his network, simultaneously, across 3 states. What happens to him now? Prisoner exchange, eventually. He's too valuable to keep indefinitely. Harmon slides a folder across his desk. It seems like my life is now measured in sliding folders. We have a proposition for you. Inside is a transfer order to the Counterintelligence Division, effective immediately. Your cover is blown, Harmon explains, but your experience makes you uniquely qualified for this role. You've seen firsthand how these operations work. We need people who understand both the technical and human elements. 6 months later, I'm sitting on the porch of my new residence, a modest house in a quiet Virginia suburb, assigned to me through the program. The security systems are state-of-the-art but discreet. The neighbors think I work for a defense contractor, which isn't entirely untrue. I notice the moving truck first, then the man carrying boxes into the house across the street, mid-40s, athletic build, friendly smile. When he sees me watching, he waves and calls out, "Just moved in. Name's Mike." That evening, there's a knock at my door. Mike stands on my porch holding a 6-pack of imported beer, expensive German stuff, not unlike what Owen brought that day that seems like a lifetime ago. "Thought I'd introduce myself properly," he says with a warm smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "Nothing breaks the ice like good beer, right?" I smile back, stepping aside to let him in. "Absolutely. Come on in, Mike. I've been expecting someone like you." His smile falters just slightly, almost imperceptible if you weren't trained to look for it. "I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about," I say, closing the door behind him. "This time, I'm ready."